This is the video that I wish I had before I was planning my W Trek. The W Trek in Chilean Patagonia is one of the most famous multi-day hikes in the entire world. It's located inside the Torres del Paine National Park, and it's called the W because the actual route itself is shaped like a W. The eastern arm leads to the base of the towers, the middle arm heads up the French Valley to two incredible lookouts, and the western arm goes up the Grey Glacier to see this giant impressive glacier. Over 4 to 5 days you hike past turquoise lakes, hanging glaciers, and jagged granite towers and icy valley. But despite how popular it is incredibly difficult to plan. I'm going to be breaking down absolutely everything, from how to actually get there, how to plan the routes, how to book the campsites, important things to know about the campsites, what you can and can't find there, and some really important things that will honestly make your adventure so much better. I've added timestamps too, so you can skip around to the bits that are going to be important for you. How to get there. So there are 3 realistic entry points to fly into to get here. The first one is Puerto Natales. Now this is the closest town and by far the most convenient option. There are seasonal flights, mainly between October and April, and most of the flights that fly into here, I think maybe all of the flights, are actually domestic flights. So we flew into Puerto Natales from Santiago, so we were already inside of Chile. It is a pretty small airport and it's not far away from the town, and when you arrive at Puerto Natales, you can either take a private taxi or a shared shuttle into the city centre, and you can just book this when you turn up at the airport when you've arrived. If you're not going to Puerto Natales, you might be going into Punta Arenas. This is slightly further away and is a slightly bigger place, so there might be more flights going there. It is also a hopping off point to do a lot of these excursions that go to see the penguins in the very, very south part of South America. It is about 3 to 3.5 hours away, so realistically, if you're going to be starting the W Trek, you're going to have to go to Puerto Natales afterwards and stay overnight there usually before you then start your hike. The alternative is going from El Calafate in Argentina, so if you're going to Argentina and Patagonia, you might be doing those hikes first and then crossing the border, which is logistically a little bit difficult but absolutely doable, and then you'll be starting the hike usually after spending a night in Puerto Natales. Now the routes. You can complete the W Trek either east to west or west to east. I don't know if that's reversed in the way that you're looking at it, but it was right for me. So deciding on which way you do your hike will depend on a couple of things. The first one is that if you do east to west, you're going to go up to the base of Las Torres first. That is the hardest part of the trek. So you'll be doing the hardest part in the first day, or at least the first 24 hours. So it's just a consideration. You know, at least you're getting that hard part out of the way first. You've got this incredible iconic thing to start the trail off with. If you do it the other way, you're kind of building up to the climax of going to the base of the towers as the final thing that you do. There's no right or wrong. People want to do one thing or the other thing, really. Sometimes your hand is forced by the availability of the campsites, and I'm going to come onto the campsites a little bit later, but depending on which campsites are available on which days, you might have to complete the trek in one direction. We originally wanted to go west to east, but could only get campsite reservations going east to west on the dates we wanted to do it. But actually, having done it, I'm so glad that we did it that way, and if I was booking it again, I would do it east to west. It meant that we got to do base of the towers twice, and also we got to do an ice hike on the Grey Glacier on our final day. So you've arrived into Puerto Natales, you've stayed overnight in the town. How do you get to the actual trail? A very, very good question, depending on where you're starting. So if you are starting in the east, it's pretty straightforward. You take a bus from Puerto Natales to a place called Laguna Amarga. That's where the bus is coming from. We booked the bus online by a company called Big Sur. Big Sur have lots of buses in the area, and that is a really common route, and we took the first bus that we could get in the morning, which is around 7 a.m, which got us there. The buses are worth booking in advance, but they tend to, if the 7 a.m. bus fills up, they'll put another bus on at 6:55, and if that fills up, they'll put another bus on at 6:50. So when we went there was actually loads of buses around 7-ish. Once you get to Laguna Amarga, you show your tickets or buy your tickets there, and then you're going to take another shuttle from there to the Welcome Center, which is near to Hotel Las Torres, and that is really the start of the trail. That is a private shuttle, that second one, and you have to pay that in cash when you're there. If you're starting in the west, it is a little bit more complicated in that you've got to take a boat as well. So the way this works is you take the bus from Puerto Natales and you go to a place called Pudeto. From Pudeto, you you take a catamaran that crosses Lake Paine that takes you to Paine Grande, where you're going to start the trail. It sounds complicated, but actually the catamarans tend to fall into the timings of the buses. So if you're taking a 7 a.m. bus that arrives at 10, 10:30, whatever time you arrive, your catamaran is going to be just after that. And the catamarans know the buses are coming and they wait for the buses. You can just turn up on the catamarans, but I also would recommend buying a ticket, which you can easily do online, especially in high seasons, just to make sure that they don't sell out. When you're returning, you're effectively going to have to do the opposite. So at some point, you're going to have to take a boat to get out of there, whether you do it at the start of the trail or whether you do it at the very end. There is actually a third and final entry and exit point, and that is via Hotel Lago Grey. And I didn't know this until very, very late on, but you can go to Hotel Lago Grey, you can take the same Big Sur bus there, it's one of their stops, and you can take a boat called Navigation Grey. Navigation Grey is actually like a tourist boat that goes up to see the Grey Glacier and back down and goes back to Hotel Lago Grey. But you can take it one way and you can jump off at Camp Grey and you can start your trail from there. That is a much more expensive option. That boat is more expensive, but you get a free pisco sour. But on some of the boats, you go on a little tour to see the glacier close up. That is one of the best ways of not backtracking on this trail, and if you wanted to do the trek in 3 days, that would be a good way of doing it. Now the campsites. Now the campsites you need to book in advance. You absolutely need to book at least a few months in advance, depending on the season. They are quite small, refugio beds are very limited, tent space on the floor is very limited, and so you need to book these in advance. If you don't have your accommodation confirmed, apparently they can turn you away when you actually turn up to enter the park. You cannot wild camp there. The way this gets a bit confusing though, is that there are two different companies that own the campsites in the park. You have Las Torres, who own Frances, Camping Central, and Chileno campsites on the east side, and you have Vertice, that's the new name, Vertice, who own Paine Grande and Camp Grey. If you're booking your route, you need to book some campsites with one and some campsites with the other. There are companies that will do this for you, and they will book all of your campsites for you, and they will charge you a premium for this. It is about 1.5 times the price you actually need to spend. So you can do it yourself, and I'll explain how to do it. It is extremely simple once you've got your head around it. I'm going to do a route from west to east, then I'm going to do a route from east to west. If you're starting in the west, you're going to spend your first night either at Camp Grey or Paine Grande. That's going to be your first night stay. So for example, your catamaran might arrive at Paine Grande, and then you're going to hike to Camp Grey and you're going to stay overnight in Camp Grey on your first night. That's the ideal thing to do. If there's no space at Camp Grey, you're going to be staying at Paine Grande. So you might hike up to Camp Grey, back down to Paine Grande, and stay at Paine Grande. From Paine Grande, you're then going to walk to the middle of the W, go up the W to the two lookouts, come back down and stay at either Camping Frances or Cuernos. They're the two middle ones, and you're going to stay at one of those two. After that night stay, you're going to hike all the way up to Chileno, and you're going to stay overnight at Chileno for your third night. On the final morning, you're going to hike up to the base of the towers, and then you're going to hike out of the park, and you're going to take that bus that we talked about that goes back to Puerto Natales. So you'd be booking one night at Grey, next night at Frances, next night at Chileno, and then you can actually leave the park if you do it that way. So you only actually need to spend 3 nights. If you're doing it east to west, you're going to come into the park and you're either going to stay at Camping Central or you're going to hike to Chileno and stay at Chileno. Then you're going to go up to the base of the towers for sunrise if you stayed at Chileno, and then you're going to stay at either Frances or Cuernos. Cuernos is slightly closer. After Cuernos, you're going to go up the W, then you're going to go along the bottom of the W and you're going to stay at Paine Grande. After Paine Grande, you're going to hike up to Camp Grey. You might do the ice hikes, you might stay at Grey, you might leave from Grey, but that would be your 4th night. So you're going to book 1, 2, 3, and potentially 4 nights, or you're just going to leave the park. So that is the way that the campsites will work. If you've got any questions about that, let me know and I will guide you through the process a little bit more. The best way, in my opinion, to do this is to check when Chileno's free if you want to go for the sunrise and base it around Chileno. You need to have a look at all of the campsites, make sure they're free on your dates before you book even one campsite, because once you've booked one, you can't then change it with another company, if that makes sense. A couple of highlights of the trail, personal highlights of mine, you can probably tell from what I've said already, but one is sunrise at the base of the towers. It is absolutely iconic, and the way that the light hits the towers is just epic, and it is true Patagonia, seeing those granite spires coming up. 2 is actually the French Valley, specifically the English Lookout. We went in autumn and had this crazy view of these autumnal forests underneath, and you get this full panorama of the granite cliffs above. Finally was the Grey Glacier. It is a giant glacier and we got to hike on it, and even just coming to see it up close and going to the bridges, it's pretty epic.
Oh, whoa.
Now onto gear. Torres del Paine National Park is famous for having all of the seasons bundled into one, so you need to make sure to pack accordingly. Here are absolute essentials. Bring anything else you want, but things you definitely need are waterproof jacket and trousers, a warm mid layer like a fleece or a light down jacket, hat and gloves, sun protection, especially because at these poles the ozone layer is thinner, so you're much more likely to get burned at these times. A water bottle because you can fill up water for free from the glacier water pretty much everywhere. Waterproof boots, really important because you do end up walking up a lot of streams, so either waterproof shoes or waterproof boots are essential in my opinion. You can hire pretty much everything else: tents, sleeping bags, roll mats, pillows. Food is available from most places if you actually don't have any. Those are the absolute bare bone essentials you must bring. And then a final consideration when you're planning your trip is whether you want to do the ice hike as well, or the ice kayak. So there's a company called Bigfoot, which if you saw my other video, you'll know about this, but they run an ice hike on the Grey Glacier. And that is completely separate to the trek, and you can book that and do that, and it is a really cool experience to do, but you need to also plan that in advance because they have really limited numbers. And that is, I think, everything you need to know about hiking the W Trek. It is an absolutely beautiful, fully doable trek. There isn't much altitude, the days are long, but they're generally flat, and it is really beautiful. So you can have an amazing time. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram and I will try and answer them. It's logistically a little bit difficult, but once you get your head around the routes and the campsites, you're gonna have an amazing trip. Make sure you give me a cheeky subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.